Is She-Hulk a masterpiece? Before you ration me to death and kill my channel before it even gets going, just hear me out. Off the bat, I do want to clarify that I don't think She-Hulk is a masterpiece. Definitely an interesting show that's divided the ever-divided fans of Marvel. What I did want to start was a series of videos that look into films, TV shows, whether they can be truly masterpieces. I guess it's all subjective, but since YouTube is about views and likes, I thought why not start with an already hot topic now that it's reached its finale. I'll admit, I've been very lukewarm on the show as a whole. It's had its bright spots and funny moments, but unfortunately for me these have been way too infrequent. I had no real desire to talk about this show as it's been done to death here already, but after the season finale I felt it really turned a corner and I was left wondering why the hell hasn't this been the show all along? Spoilers from here on out, so let me quickly recap the season so I can get to this. Episode 1. She becomes She-Hulk due to a car accident and the Hulk's blood gets into her wound. Jen, somewhat trained, has a meaningful monologue, if not misplaced, with whom she's speaking with, and then a fight that's... Anyway. Episode 2. Jen is fired and rehired in a blink of an eye to be the face of the Superhuman Law Division, despite her reluctance to go public as She-Hulk. Episode 3. Emil Blonsky, the Abomination, goes before the parole board as Jen tries to win him early release, but only if she can convince Wong, the Sorcerer Supreme, to show her. And we have Dennis, one of the many two-dimensional characters going up against an Asgardian shapeshifter who defrauded Dennis, followed by the after-credit infamous twerk. Episode 4. Jen tries her hand at dating with mixed results. One comes to her wanting a cease and desist filed against magician Donny Blaze. Episode 5. Titania sues Jen for copyright infringement for using her name She-Hulk, and her boss convinces Jen to get new suits. Episode 6. Jen is a bridesmaid for an old school friend. She meets Josh, who likes her for who she is, and then fights Tatiana. Meanwhile, Mallory and Nikki help Mr. Immortal in a series of divorce settlement who dies to get out of boring marriages. Episode 7. Jen is called to Emil's retreat when the alert on his inhibitor goes off. She struggles to get a Wi-Fi signal while waiting for a text from Josh. Jen then shares her issues with Emil's group of superhuman types. After credits show us Josh cloned Jen's phone. Episode 8. Jen is assigned to help Leapfrog after his suit malfunctions and wants to sue the creator Luke, who also designs Jen's suits. Luke's lawyer just so happens to be Daredevil. One of the big reasons this show has gotten a lot of flack is because they teased Daredevil from one of the first trailers, and let's be honest, a lot of people hate this show because for some reason they got it in their head that Daredevil would be a prominent part of the show, and that's on them. Anyway, Matt Murdock wipes the floor with Jen in court and gets his client off. Matt and Jen have a moment in a bar, followed by a Daredevil She-Hulk fight in which Jen doesn't care less about the damage she causes as She-Hulk. They team up later to find Leapfrog, who has become the mini-villain of the episode. They bring him down. Matt and Jen bump uglies and Daredevil has a walk of shame, or a walk of pride, depending on how you look at it. The episode ends with Jen, She-Hulk, out in front of her peers when the contents of her phone are shared on a large screen by the cult intelligentsia. Jen, She-Hulks out and is arrested. So that's the bulk of the show, and I was left scratching my head, not because the show is offensively bad like some might have you believe, but because it doesn't lean into any real one idea, it just skims the surface. And this brings us to episode 9. It begins with Jen waking up in prison. It does seem a little odd. They say witnesses saw an out-of-control She-Hulk, yet she doesn't hurt anyone, and as soon as the police turn up, she surrenders. Anyway, she agrees to wear an inhibitor and is released. She loses her job and moves back in with her parents. Jen and Nikki try to work out the incel group, eventually finding their hideout where they're greeted with a live-action subreddit group. Abomination shows up as a guest speaker. Todd, who has acquired She-Hulk's blood, he takes it and becomes a Hulk. Jen turns to the camera and says,
"This can't possibly be where this season was going."
Titania shows up and mayhem fights commence. And this for me is where the show finally gets going, if not a little too late. With everything that's come before this, it's almost as if the writers wanted to do multiple stories, but ended up only skimming the surface of all of them, and this is evident in the final acts of the last episode. Let's get one thing straight. If this was a Deadpool show, and the last 10 minutes Deadpool broke through the Disney menu screen, confronted the writers, and then spoke with Kevin, people would have gone absolutely nuts. I'm not saying there aren't people who enjoy this ending, but there seems to be this odd group of people who say it went too far and was ridiculous. Yet for me, it was just the beginning of what I wanted to see in this show. We're seeing the first character in the MCU, excluding the Fox Marvel, where a character breaks the fourth wall. So why not lean into it? We have numerous occasions when Jen speaks to us. Great. Build on that in each subsequent episode, culminating in the finale we got. Just imagine for a minute if Deadpool was Kevin. He could have been pulling the strings all along from the very first Iron Man movie. If this show wants to be meta, then go big. This also lets Marvel bring in Deadpool into the MCU. I'm not saying this is how it should have ended, but this is one possibility out of many. I'm just unsatisfied with a show that had so much potential squandered. I know some people say it's the worst show ever, All I have to say about that is that you need to watch more TV. I've also seen lots of people complain that Jen has no character development or arc whatsoever. I mean, it's not the biggest arc in story history, but she does spend the majority of the show struggling with her identity and hating men. Her lens on men is that they're only after one thing, and the writers have clearly taken this from life experience. Yet Jen comes to accept there are good guys, literally learning this in a room full of men while finally letting in a good guy, Matt Murdock. Of course, I'm the first to put my hand up and say this show isn't really aimed at me, but I watched it with my wife, a 30-something lawyer. You don't get more of a specific targeted audience, and guess what? She really enjoyed the show, and at the end of the day, if this show brings joy and entertainment to people, then it's done its job. And hating on it for the sake of clicks and likes seems a little odd, but I guess that's the world we now live. I'd love to hear your thoughts below, whether you loved it or hated it or just indifferent. I hope you enjoyed my ramble, and if you did, please like and subscribe for more British rambles in the future.